Well, fellow Gwent players, Gwent Masters is over and we finally got all of our reveals. It was such a fun little event to cast it with Bushy, Spiro, and Spessy, and Quilland Lance and Joe Haggis also joined from time to time, but mostly the Bushy, Spessy, Spiro, and my combo was there for the commentary. We had a lot of fun, so everybody who saw it, thank you for watching it. It was a very enjoyable event, and it was some of the best Gwent gameplay and deck building that you could possibly get, honestly. Like, Colemon really did well, but let's not talk about Gwent Open. Not Gwent Open, Gwent Masters Season 1. That was a fun event. Let's talk about this expansion that's coming out tomorrow, huh? Ooh, Once Upon a PYRE. We got some cards, and I'm going to talk about those cards. So let's just get into the first one. So the first card of the second half of the reveals, I already revealed the first half. I'll link this video in the description. Is Catcheress. Whenever a unit is damaged, reduce its base power by 1. Whenever this unit is damaged, reduce its base power by 1. Sabbath, cancel the ability above. Whenever you play a relic, increase this unit's base power by 1. Now, this card is actually pretty solid. I like its flavor, one could say. I also like its synergies with the what's his name? Penitence, that's the card. Yeah, okay, sorry about that. So, yeah, with Penitent, this is actually pretty solid, because Penitent with the Thrive, he might grow, and Sabbath, I'm not sure how good Sabbath is actually going to be. Like, it's a mechanic that you can't really evaluate with just the cards that are being revealed. Me personally, I think Sabbath is quite an easy condition to be met, but you also have to build your deck around it. So that's where Catcheress is going to be alright. I mean, in the end of the day, she's also just a 9 for 7 unconditionally, but if it gets damaged, its base power decreases. It also gives you an extra target for your Ozrel if you don't have like Wyvern, or if you don't like Goliath, because this is kind of like a 1 provision cheaper Goliath in sort of Thrive decks. But also at 7, it pretty much triggers every Thrive which there is on your side of the field. So I think this card is pretty solid. If I were to give it a rating out of 10, I'd probably give it a 6. A 9 for 7 can never be bad, but I think because of polarization and Beast and Aperian still being more favored than this, I do think this will be cut by like week 2 of the expansion, unless there's some crazy combos you can make with this. But at the moment, I don't really have any idea as to what kind of combos you can really do with this one. So yeah, Catcheress is a pretty fun little card. And yeah, let's just move on to the next one. We got Gan Can. Deploy increases unit's base power by 2 for each adjacent relic. Now, this card seems pretty scary. There's a lot of ways you can increase this card's base strength and create like this really, really big ghoul for later rounds when this is in your graveyard. And yeah, this card seems very, very good. Like I think this card is pretty crazy, honestly. Gankan is just like, it's a 9 if you have 2 Crones. Now the thing is, the Crones, I'm not sure how good Crones are actually going to be, and if it's actually worth playing the relics. Like, there's not that many relics in the game for this to really be worth it at the moment. But I think this card will just get better with expansions in the future. So, I mean, with the other sort of Price of Power expansions that will be coming out in 2 months and 4 months. So, yeah, I think Gankan is a pretty solid little card at the moment. I mean, at the moment, I don't think it's that great, to be honest. It's definitely worse than the previous, like the first 2 monster cards that have been revealed to us. The Witch Apprentice and and She Who Knows. But I can see this card having some good meme potential, and I love me some meme potential. But I think at the moment this is probably a below average card, so I would probably give it a 4 out of 10. I think monsters, like, the monster cards seem very crazy on paper. Like, they have some really crazy combo potential and also could just be very solid cards. But I guess this one, you have to remember, this is a condition that is actually quite hard to meet because relics in this game are kind of bad. Like, there's not a lot of good relics unless they're getting, like, unless the Unicorn and Karanex are getting buffs. Apart from the Crones, I don't see any relic that would be worth it to play. So, yeah, Ganken is probably just not good. Not that good at the moment. It could still be pretty good in future expansions when there's going to be more relics added to the game. Then we have Blightmaker Deploy. Move a card in your deck to the top of it. If it was a mage, spawn the Guardian on this row. If it was a special card, spawn and play a Cow Carcass. Whew, this card is crazy. In my opinion, like, there's a card coming up that has, like, the amazing synergy that makes this card absolutely over the top ridiculous. But this effect alone, a 4 provision card that allows you to put any card in your deck on top of your deck for 5 provisions at 4 power, it's kind of like a better Fisher King because it always is one thinning, right? It gives you consistency on a 4-point body. It doesn't play for much tempo, but if you're putting a mage on top of your deck, it plays for 7. And if you're playing a special, spawning the Cow Carcass can trigger assimilate statuses, spy tags. So this card really has no downside. You just put this in a Nilfgaard deck. Now, obviously, with the next card, this card, like, even without the next card that's going to come up, and you guys might know the next card that's going to come up, this card, I would still say, is a solid, like, 8 to 9 out of 10, because it just gives you consistency on a bronze card, and it allows you to manipulate your deck. Like, you play this and put, like, a big Tibor on top of your deck, and then you can, like, Vilgefortz a 1-point unit on your side of the field, and then you got a lot of points with that. Like, you didn't actually get any, sort of passive value with this of moving a mage or moving a special card, but you still set up, like, a combo play with the Vilgefortz. I mean, this is probably, like, a really bad play that I'm describing to you, but even in that bad play, this card still plays for a lot of value. So I think this card is just kind of insane. Like, on a bronze card, this ability seems very busted, especially when you can do it twice. So yeah, I mean, obviously, the problem with it also is, like, against Mill, it can get punished pretty hard if you put, like, a good card on top of your deck and your opponent plays the the Kingslayer or Alchemist. So you always have to be careful in the Nilfgaard mirrors. But I still would say that this card is absolutely ridiculously strong. And here we have Mage Assassin. Now, this is the card I mentioned earlier. Deploy, damage an enemy unit by 2. If moved to the top of your deck, during your turn, summon self to a random allied row and damage a random enemy unit by 2. So if you don't have this on top of your deck, it plays for 4. 4 for 4, you got, the Wolf Pack. Bad card, but obviously you're never ever using this as a wolf pack. But you're always going to use this with Blightmaker. Like, there's no denying that. And with Blightmaker, because it is a mage, Blightmaker will spawn the Guardian next to him. So Blightmaker plays for 7, and this plays for 4 on if your opponent has something on the side of the field that doesn't have armor. So the max value of those 2 bronzes is 11 points, 1 thinning, which is just insane. Like, both this and the Blightmaker, you double click in the deck builder and you got, like, 4 cards already auto put into your deck. Because Nilfgaard loves this card. Nilfgaard loves a little bit of thinning, because especially with Devotion Nilfgaard I could definitely see this being insane in Devotion Nilfgaard. Like, this is just auto-include in Nilfgaard. It's the most points, it's 1 thinning, and it's also kind of flexible, right? You could use, like, a Morvran leader for this to be consistent, but you're never doing that. This is pretty much the same as Skjald and the Skirmisher, which you're just playing to for points and consistency and thinning so that you find your gold cards later on. But the thing is also these are on a power level of gold cards pretty much, being 11 points comboing with each other. Yeah, you're paying 9 provisions in the deck builder, but you're actually not paying 9 provisions in the deck builder because a 4 provision card has to be in your deck. There's no deck that doesn't play 4 provision cards. And a 5 provision card is also just, there. It's a 5 provision card. Like, come on, you're actually just playing 1 provision for that. So you're not actually paying anything for this ability with the Blightmaker combo. So yeah, I'm kind of scared how good this will make Nilfgaard. But with the golds that we saw, maybe it's not going to be that significant. But let's move on to the goals. I think this, Mage Assassin and Blightmaker together, are a 10 out of 10. Because you can't have one without the other. Because it just is the double click on both cards in the deck builder immediately. I think these cards are going to be auto-include in every Nilfgaard deck. I don't see a reason not to play this card and the Blightmaker because they are just too good, too cheap, too consistent, and too powerful not to be run in a bronze pool like Nilfgaard. Because, yeah, you have the dogs, the hunting pack, which plays for 8, but it plays for 8 with 1 less provisions, and it relies on your opponent having a status. This combo literally relies on you having a Blightmaker in hand and having a Mage Assassin in deck, which is quite easy to actually fulfill. So all you have to do is watch out for mulligans. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. I think both of these cards are going to be auto-include in Nilfgaard, without a doubt. And here we have Rion's Human Mage Agent Deploy. Look at the top 3 units in your deck. Move 1 to your graveyard and destroy an enemy unit with power equal to that unit's power. Or set the power of a unit to match the number of cards in your deck. Now, this card kind of caused a little controversy because Nilfgaard got a terrible card. And my opinion on this card is, yeah, this card is pretty bad. I don't think the condition of equal makes sense here. It's just not good with equal, right? Because you have to sort of put like a Rico on top of your deck, which doesn't really make sense for it to like gain consistent value. And then you discard the Rico, which is a 6 provision card. So you're paying so much for that already, because you also have to set it up. You have to put the Rico on top of your deck. I don't know. This card seems so weird. I like the order ability though. The order ability has a nice little flavor. But the problem with this card is its deploy ability. Also, if you're looking at like the top 3 units of your deck, and it's like a Tibor, and your opponent has a 13-point unit, if that is the case, you're discarding a 9 provision card to deal 13 provisions. This is kind of like a worse Ice Turisak, but Ice is kind of like relying on the leader, and this is relying on setup and your boards, and your opponent's board state. So I don't think this card will see... I mean, it will see play at the start, but I don't think it can be competitive, especially at 13 provisions. I think the 13 provisions is quite insane. Because if you're thinking about hyper-thin Nilfgaard wants to kind of play a lot of specials as well. So that cards like Triss, Yennefer can always hit the Tibor. And Riance is kind of just like an unreliable Triss in that situation, right? And while his order might be okay, your opponent doesn't always play tall as well. So, I don't know. I think Riance just kind of sucks. You could see some, like, you could see some niche play in certain decks. But I think the card just isn't good enough to be, replacing something like a Ball for Nilfgaard, or a Usurper for Nilfgaard, or a Brathens for Nilfgaard, because those cards are pretty much just like auto-include at this point. So yeah, Riance, I would say, I'd give this guy a 2 out of 10. I'll be generous with the 2 out of 10, by the way. This is a very generous 2 out of 10. Because I like the card, and I like his character in the books. Dead Man's Tongue. Banish a card from your deck, then boost an allied unit by that card. Dead Man's Tongue. Spell. Banish a card from your deck, then boost an allied unit by that card's provision cost. If the banished card was a bronze, banish another bronze card from your deck and boost the same unit by that card's provision cost. So that's a lot of, text, but it's basically you're removing 2 cards from your deck, most of the time bronze cards. So in the worst case scenario, 2 4-provision bronze cards gonna get removed from your deck, and then you boost, a unit by 8. But it's like an 8-point boost with 2 thinning for 7 provisions. So the card that I would probably compare this to the most is like Last Wish. I think Last Wish is very similar to this card, where it thins your deck by 2, and it has this banish effect as well. But for this one, the problem with this one basically is if you have to have the copy of the other bronze in your deck. If that's the case, then this card's actually alright. Like, if you banish like a 5-provision sort of Impera Brigade, that's pretty good. It's like a 10, thin the brigade out so it doesn't like pop up in your hand anymore. And yeah, I mean, the thinning tool is just kind of crazy. Like, this is a crazy thinning tool, but I'm not sure how much you actually want to be thinning. Also, this card is not a tactic. That's kind of bad. I don't like the fact that this is not a tactic and it's just a spell. I understand with Invocation, but come on. They're getting information out of the guy. Like, why can this not just be a tactic as well? But I guess they want to make it a spell. Because, like, in Enslave, this card would be actually kind of good, right? Because you're banishing, like, bad bronze tactic cards from your deck. Like, a Joust or 2... battle preparations for 7 provisions. So you're really gonna be finding your good stuff more reliably. But that's not the case. This card is not a tactic, and I think that's probably his biggest downside. The card, the funniest combo probably is with Thunderbolt Potion. You have 2 Thunderbolt Potions in your deck, and this card plays for like 16. Which is kind of stupid. If you think about it, that's like more than double its provision cost. And you thin 2 Thunderbolt Potions out of your deck. But at the end of the day, that's not really worth it still, right? Also, you can banish a gold card from your deck, like Rion's. Or you can banish Masquerade Ball for a whooping 15 points. Woo! That's busted for 7 provisions. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this card's gonna be that great. I think it's a bit too much thinning. Also, it's kind of like a worse Vigo. For like Vigo's, actually thins your deck and it actually puts points on your side of the field in like a wide area and not like a very tall unit. And it also gives you an Assimilate engine. Whereas this is just kind of like a one-time power play that goes quite tall, which can obviously run into some punish for that. And yeah, I mean, yeah, this is pretty much, I don't know. I mean, the card is not terrible. Like, it's not bad, but I don't think the card will see a place anywhere. Like, I don't think this card will ever sort of find its spot in a deck because it could be quite awkward in a lot of situations. If it was a tactic, that's a different story. But yeah, I think at the moment this is probably like a 3 out of 10. Maybe I'm completely wrong about this. I wouldn't mind being wrong about this, but I think because of the bronze cards that Nilfgaard got, a card like this is pointless because you can just like, instead of this, just have 2 of the bronzes, 4 of the bronzes that play for pretty much more power than this, and then you can just like free up provisions for the higher provision slots. So yeah, Dead Man's Tongue is a pretty weak card. Yeah, I would say it's very below average. It's a 3 out of 10. And now we move on to Skellige, Tears of Siren, spawn rain on enemy. And now we move on to Skellige, Tears of Siren, spawn rain on an enemy row for 2 turns, then spawn a deafening siren on the opposite row. So this is just kind of like a weather card for Skellige. Skellige getting that rain synergy. You love to see it. And it's an alchemy card. That's actually quite important about it with Crow Mother. It also has some beast synergy with the Deafening Siren on your side of the field. This card's just like okay. It's not great. It's not bad either. It has some synergies with the following cards. Are you replacing Rhizome for it? Probably not. Like Golden Froth as well. I don't think you're replacing Golden Froth, because Golden Froth is just more reliable than this if you're playing Alchemy Skellige. So yeah, I do like. Yeah, I think this card's also really boring. Skellige is boring. Every time I see Skellige, it's boring. Oh, well, to be fair, the gold cards are not that boring this time. So yeah, I think this card is like meh. It's probably like another 3 out of 10. It's kind of meh. Like, you won't be seeing players go, oh yeah, let's put Tears of Siren in my deck. I'm a instantly double click this card. Even in an alchemy deck, honestly, I think this card would not be that great. So yeah, just move on to the next card. Next card is Fulmar, Human Druid Cultist. Deploy, spawn and play Tears of Siren. Order, replace Rain on an enemy row with Storm of the same duration. So this one is a lot better. Like, obviously they printed the Tears of Siren for this card, literally. So you don't actually have to play Tears of Siren. You just have this 6-point unit that plays Tears of Siren. So it already plays for 12. It's a 12 for 12, but it takes a few turns. You know, you gotta think about the turns. Puts 2 units on your side of the field. Could deal 4 damage to random units, enabling Bloodthirst. And then you replace the Rain on an enemy row with Storm of the same duration. So Storm is the Skellige Storm, if you guys didn't know. It deals 1 damage to every unit on that row. So with something like the Rage of the Sea Leader, this could be kind of scary with a dagger as well. So Storm could be quite powerful. Storm could definitely be quite powerful now that it has this sort of other enabler and you're able to play multiple Storms. Also, I think Vadermaker got a change. Yeah, Vadermaker got a change that increases the duration of weathers by 3 if you control the Storm of Scepter. So that's pretty nuts. I'm not sure if Storm of Scepter is also a location. That would also be kind of crazy. I didn't see the changes on that. But Fulmar with the Storm synergies seems like a pretty solid card. Is he gonna, like, replace Skellige Warriors? Probably not at the moment. But as an addition to your Skellige Gedineth deck, this card is insane, right? Like, this card is just insane. You play one of the Crow Clan Preachers and play a second Crow Clan Preacher, and then play a Fulmar. Whew! That's a lot of points with a Gedineth on your side of the field. So, yeah, I mean, the card has potential. It's probably going to put back Gedineth decks, for sure. Because Gedineth decks were kind of lacking this sort of big point finisher. Or like, apart from Gedineth, like, something. You know, Gedineth was kind of like the only thing they had. And now they have Fulmar. That's pretty good. Like, I'm not sure, though, that Rain synergizes with the Druid archetype, though. That's a completely different story, but I don't think Rain really synergizes with the Druid archetype. So we're just going to have to see. Maybe this card is just a good value card for that deck anyway, where it doesn't really matter. So, yeah, I mean, I like the card. I would probably, like, the card just really has no downside as well. Card is just kind of good. So I'd give it a solid, like, 8 out of 10. Not sure if it will be, like, the most competitive card, but looking at the card right now, it's just a solid, like, 12 for 12. And then you have, like, this other order ability that, if this card stays alive, can work out quite nicely. But, like, playing 12 for 12, plus some damage on your side of the field, plus some alchemy synergy, seems pretty alright, honestly. Next up, we have Bride of the Sea. Deploy, play an alchemy card from your graveyard with provision cost 4 or less. Increase the maximum cost by the total duration of Rain and Storm on opponent's side. So if you're going with Rage of the Sea, you can use 1 leader charge, which gives you 2 Rain, and then you can replay a decoction. And this card is actually very good with that. Like, this card is probably auto-include in Rage of the Sea. You would have to play some other alchemy cards as well, such as, like, Delirium or Freya's Blessing, which also is a 6 provision card. So with 1 leader charge, you're instantly getting like the 6 provision card for free from your graveyard. Like, you obviously had to have played it already, but allowing you to replay it seems pretty solid, honestly. You can also go full meme with this and try and resurrect a Sigrifa's Right. But the awkward thing about that is you need the card that you resurrect with Sigrifa's Right and the Sigrifa's Right in your graveyard. So, yeah, obviously that's a bit of a meme. But, I mean, memes, this guy. So, yeah, we'll see how good that could be. But, yeah, I think this card actually is pretty solid, though. Like, also just being able to replay, like, a Rhizome for, like, 10, right? Like, this card just plays a Rhizome for 10 at 8 provisions. Like, isn't that just good? Yeah. It could also replay a Mardrome, which is also pretty crazy. Like, this card just has no downside, I would say. So, this probably is a 10 out of 10. Like, it's not going to find itself in, like, suddenly in, like, warrior decks. But I think for the druid, like, there won't be a single druid deck that doesn't play this card. Like, no doubt about that. Like, this card is just solid. And next up, we have Melusine Cultist with probably the lowest resolution picture of all of these so far. So, order spawn rain for 2 turns on an enemy row at the end of your turn. If there is rain on the opposite row, boost the unit to the right by 1. If there is storm on the opposite row, boost adjacent units by 1 instead. Alright, so the thing with a card like this is you read all this text, and the more text you read, the worse the card basically gets. That's something that's always like, this card is just a bad drummer with like an order ability. Like, you have to have rain on your side of the field already for this to gain value. And storm, while it is possible to do that, the storm will never be more than like 3 turns. So it'll be like an Ana for like 3 turns. If it doesn't already get removed at 3 power, 1 armor. Like, I mean, it's kind of funny. This is like the first ever boost engine Skellige has. And it's the most convoluted thing I've ever seen in my life. The thing is, if this card actually had a deploy ability, I talked to Spiro about this, and we both agreed that this could kind of like get the same treatment as Bruxa. No, not Bruxa, Alp, where he has the deploy ability of spawning the rain, and then he has the order of spawning another rain. So he gets sort of value immediately. He gets like 6 value immediately, and if it gets removed, it probably trades well. It's still a good card. Like, if you're trying to make a good card out of this, that's probably the way to do it. If you're trying to make this what this is, it's not a good card. Because, yeah, no, this is not replacing the priest from these decks, I think. Maybe with the future Price of Power expansions, this card could see play, but I think at the moment it's just not good enough. This is probably a 2 out of 10. Like, it can be okay if your opponent doesn't answer it, but still, there's like so many conditions that have to be met for it to actually get good value, because you want to use your Rage of the Sea leader charges if you're playing Rain for cards like the gold ones. I forgot their names, sorry. But yeah, you want to use it for the gold ones and not for a Melusine Cultist. So yeah, probably not gonna be good enough for just the power levels of the game at the moment. Next up, we have Teleportation. Reset an allied unit's power. If it's a bronze unit, replay it instead. So this one is a bit interesting. The thing about it is you can reset like strong bronze order cards, and there's one card that works that's going to come up later, but there's also Centurion Royal Guards. I think this is probably the best with Centurion Royal Guards, because you have like the one Centurion Royal Guard that's a 5 at the start that kind of like tries to stay alive, and then you just replay that guy and he gets bigger. Wow, so good. By the way, there's a lot of Centurion Royal Guards support with the neutrals with this expansion, which I find kind of funny. But yeah, Teleportation, It re-triggers deploy abilities as well. This is kind of just a meme card, which I'm pretty happy with. Like, this card has some really weird like potential combo play potential. Okay, that was a bit weird the way I said that, but you guys would understand what I'm trying to say here. This guy, yeah, this card is kind of like a super heavy like combo card with certain bronzes. Also, the Crone, the relic card, also really good with this one, because if you replay that card, it's a base power, so you're getting another 4 out of that, but you're getting another 4 base power, so you're able to get a bigger Ghoul or Ozril even. At that point, you're getting a bigger Ozril as well, because you're tempted to eat that big Kain, whatever her name is. So yeah, I would say this card has potential, but it probably only has potential in like meme decks or like weird strategies, which I don't mind. Obviously, I'm all for it, but you won't see this card in like the next meta snapshot for sure. So teleportation, probably a 3 out of 10. I mean, the card has some funny potential, but it's just not competitive. All right, and here we have Sorceress of Dol Blathanna. I couldn't find like the actual like reveal art of this one, so I guess you just have to deal with this one. Order: create and play a bronze Squirtle special card with a provision cost equal to or lower than this card's power. Now, in this case, I would have actually liked if this card had equal, because actually, no, it doesn't make sense, because, yeah, okay, sorry. I was thinking about, like, interactions with, like, if this is a 5 power, you're not reliably finding Rebukes or Waylays or the Circle of Life. But if the opponent damages it, you have to boost it exactly up to 5, which also isn't that great. So, yeah, I mean, the opponent can play around this by simply damaging this card, but you're probably always going to play this with a Tempering as well. So yeah, but let's evaluate this. Like you have a unit that creates a special card. It's an order special card, so you can kind of like combo this with some damage. But the problem is it's kind of unreliable if it is at 5 power. It has to kind of be at 4 power to be able to do Making a Bomb, Caress, and what's the last one? What is the last one? Oh, God. Oh, Tempering. Yeah, Tempering. I mean, with Tempering, this plays for 9. It's pretty good. With Making a Bomb, it plays for the same kind of value as a Pyrotech, but it also plays a bomb, right? So that's also pretty nasty. The problem with this card is obviously it's 4 power, 5 provision stat line, which just gets answered pretty much every time. Like, yeah, pretty much every time. And I guess it's all no, you don't really want to like try and set this card up too much. You kind of just want to get good value out of it, and that's going to be quite difficult. If there was like a way to give Zeal to this in Squirtle apart from Petrie's Filter, I would say it's all right, but yeah, I think the card just dies too easily, because I do expect the meta to sort of shape around control during its first like week or month, because people will just try to answer all these crazy options that are available to us now. And yeah, the Dol Blathanna, also Northern Realms' buffs are gonna kind of like incentivize a control meta. And yeah, I mean, this card it has potential, but is it ever gonna fulfill that potential? I don't think so. So Sorceress of Dol Blathanna, pretty underwhelming, I would say. So yeah, I'd probably give it like a, I mean, it has potential to be very good, but very rarely is this ever going to be very good. So I'd probably give it like a 4 out of 10. Now, why did I give it a... No, this is a 2 out of 10. This card actually is kind of bad. And here we have Vanadain. Deploy. Move 2 cards from your hand to the bottom of your deck. Add Waylay to your hand for each card moved that way. Whenever you play Waylay, spawn an Elven Deadeye on this row. So the text on this card is probably the worst text I've seen in a long time. It doesn't say so it's like it creates Waylays, it adds Waylays from your deck. It's really unspecified, but I would say it just creates random Waylays. It doesn't show you whether you can confirm the choice or not as well. So imagine you're in round 3, you have your hand is full gold, and this is one of the golds, and you have to move 2 golds back onto the bottom of your deck. Yeah, to get Waylays? Yeah, I'm not sure about that, honestly. I hope this card has a confirmed choice option because me and Busher and Spiro talked about it. And we agreed that if this card has a confirmed choice option, this card actually is pretty okay. If it forces you to move 2 cards to the bottom of your deck, the card's actually garbage, right? I would say so, like, because it only is good in round 1. And a card that is only good in round 1 is not that great. Also, you could also have just like full gold hand in round 1. Then you would be relying on cards like Isengrim's Council and Call of the Forest as well to sort of find your best cards if you have to move them in to the bottom. So yeah, I don't like this card. Like, okay, the second ability of whenever you play Waylay, spawn an Elven Deadeye on this row is pretty good. I'm gonna be real with you. This is actually pretty good. But its deployability, if it, like, okay, so I'm gonna assess this the way, like, I'm gonna give this 2 assessments. If it gives you a confirmed choice and doesn't force you to move a card to the bottom of your deck, card's actually pretty okay. I would give it a 5 out of 10 in that case, because it still can be kind of awkward. It also just plays for 6 tempo at 8 provisions. Probably the best way to play it is to proc the last chapter on your Feign Death. And that's actually kind of good, because Skeletal doesn't really have that many good, like, last procs on the Feign Death chapter. Like, you usually have, like, Yavin, Vernociel, and Isengrim. And you don't really want to play those cards because you don't want to maximize the value on those cards. And if you have Vanadane, though, you're maximizing 100% on that last Feign Death trigger. But you might overswarm your board as well. But yeah, and if it's not confirmed choice, this card is like a 1 out of 10 in my opinion. This card is awful if you can't confirm choice. Like, really, really bad. Forcing you to move 2 cards into the bottom of your deck is just bad in any round outside of round 1, I would say. Because it doesn't really give you that good of a card in Waylay anyway. Like, Waylay is just not that great, like, to begin with. So, yeah, that's pretty much all there is to Vanadane. Next up, we have Megascope. Deploy. Choose a bronze allied unit after 2 turns, spawn its base copy on the right of Megascope. Yeah, this card is kind of crazy. I could see this card really, really being experimented with and finding a place in like a really crazy strategy. For example, Great Swords. Every 2 turns... Oh, wait, no, it's after 2 turns. Okay, so Great Swords, you get a 10 for 4, which pretty good, I would say. But obviously, you're then cutting out Devotion and Great Swords. Maybe not the best. But something like Centurion Royal Guards, something like Townsfolk. So this is just like a meme card support to the max, pretty much. Like, this is just pretty much meme card support. Also, it can create crows. And I know you custom card viewers, you custom card submitters, oh, you're gonna love this card with crow messengers. Because you're creating a lot of carryover with crow messengers and Megascope. So, yeah, I mean, you could make some funny stuff happen with crow messengers for sure. So, yeah, looking forward to that, actually. I'm gonna try some weird crow strategy, 100%. Like, this card can be played. This is what I think is so funny about neutrals these days. They're making neutrals really memey so that you can kind of like mess around with it, because they're trying to make Devotion quite strong and sort of neutral cards more meme tier. That's the feeling that I'm getting right now with the current direction of Gwent. And I'm all for it. I mean, if neutrals are going to be memey and I get to play them in every faction, just sign me up. Sign me up. Like, yeah, you could say also this plays... I mean, this doesn't actually play for 0 tempo. A lot of people saying this plays for 0 tempo. It really doesn't. You click it, nothing happens, your opponent passes, and its counter is going to go back to... Its counter going to go to 0 anyway. So, like, it plays for 0. It's actually, like, disgusting because your opponent can't actually interact with this until the next turn, where you could also like set up another engine. It's kind of like a 4 provision portal that gives you a 3rd bronze card, but it removes the deployability. So yeah, I think this card is actually like pretty solid though. Like, it has some very weird combo potential for sure. And I would probably give it a 5 out of 10. This might be a wild take, a hot take, but I think this card actually has potential for like meme strategies and maybe even competitive strategies. If there's like this engine overload deck with Megascope, it could actually be kind of devastating with how good it is, or like with how like much potential this card actually gives you. Next up, we have Whisper of Dol Blathanna. Veil. When you play a special card, spawn a base copy of self on this row and remove a counter. Counter 1. This is another like good waylay proc on the scenario, I would say. But at 3 power with Veil, I don't think Veil's going to help it that much. But at 3 power in the mirror, this is going to be terrible. Like, Scoia'tael mirrors, like this is gonna get waylaid to complete oblivion, or dip into Pontar. Or like any 4 damage card deals with this. It's kind of like a bad Revenant. It's kind of like old Revenant from beta, if you guys remember that. I would have liked maybe 1 armor as well added to this card. That could have been kind of decent with the 1 armor. Yeah, I mean at 3 power Veil, I don't think this card's good enough for giving you 3 points per special. Yeah, I think it's too easily dealt with. Yeah, it probably is just too easily dealt with. So, yeah, it's kind of sad, but it is what it is. It's just Whisper of Dol Blathanna, just not good enough. I'd probably give this like... Yeah, this is probably like a 3 out of 10. It does have potential if it stays alive, but it never stays alive, I would say. I mean, you can bait this out. Like, you can bait removal out with this one, and then the sorceresses of Dol Blathanna might stay alive. But, yeah. Don't really think that's worth it, realistically. So, nice. Yeah, I mean, the card's not good enough, I would say. And the last card, Francesca Findabair. I don't know how to pronounce it. That's my try. Veil. Whenever you play a special card, remove 1 counter. Counter 3. When counter reaches 0, spawn a play a doomed copy of the last special card you played. Yeah, this card is... A lot of people are saying double water, but it's probably not good for double water because you have to play a lot of specials in the deck that you're playing this in, and double water requires you to play units. So, Water of Brokilon, let's put this one aside and think about the actual possibilities of this one. You got Uma, Shoop, Aguara. This card is meme central, but it can also play for a lot of points. Like, the way to trigger this, you can't trigger this in 1 turn unless you have like 2 sorceresses and tempering as your leader ability. Other than that, I don't think you can kind of like proc this during the same turn. But, I mean, like, this is pretty hard to kill, I would say. The problem is also Scoia'tael Defender's kind of bad. But with Veil, it has to eat either damage or has to get heat waved. Because your opponent can't really lock this. The only downside of this card is the counter 3. Counter 3 might be a bit too much, though. Like, you're trying to combo as much as possible, but you want to get, like, really strong special cards. Like, Double Call of the Forest is actually really, really crazy with this one because of its combo potential. You also, yet again, you can play this with the scenario, proc it twice. Proc 1 counter already. And yeah, I mean, the card has so much potential. It's very, like, similar to the leader cards that were released earlier this March, I think it was, where they have some really off-the-wall crazy potential. And just, like, if they stay alive, they do play for a lot of points. And Francesca is going to play for so many points. It's going to be kind of ridiculous. So, yeah, but is it going to die? Is it going to eat heat waves? 100%. Are you going to play this with Gezraz? 100%, because Gezraz also heats heat waves. And the good thing about this card as well is 10 provisions is quite cheap for this effect, actually. Like, you're trading with the heat wave. And I wouldn't know a single card that deals 7 damage apart from the Iced or Hjalmar. So This card is pretty good when you're bleeding your opponent. You can like proactively just play the Francesca and ask him if he has the answers. And if he has the answers in like Hjalmar or Iced, or if he's forced to use Iced, it's going to be quite scary. But yeah, this is another sort of incentive that I would assume that it's just going to be a control meta for this expansion, because there's a lot of scary engines that came out with it. Like the Bertolt. No, is this Bernhard? What is his name? The Northern Realms one. The Northern Realms one's name. Oh, I forgot his name. But you guys know who I mean. You guys know who I mean. The Northern Realms guy is also pretty scary. Generally, Northern Realms might be tier 0 next patch because of the changes they're also getting. But who knows? Maybe all the other factions are getting some buffs here and there. But yeah, I would, if I were to give this a rating, I'd probably give it a 5 out of 10, because I still don't really know. This is kind of like a meta call, honestly. It's like, how does the meta evolve around these new cards and the Northern Realms changes? And I would assume that it's going to be quite a lock-heavy meta. Like, every deck will be playing locks. So the Veil, in this case, might be very handy. And it might suck against Skellige, but Squirtle kind of outpoints Skellige in some situations, especially with Symbiosis. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what this card will do and how this card will fare. But as a meme player, this card's very good, because this card can just like double play Uma or some dog card like that. So yeah, it's gonna be funny to try that out for sure. And yeah, that was the final card reveals for Once Upon a Pyre. We are going to get a lot of changes with Northern Realms. I was thinking of adding those changes into this video, but I think the video then is just going to be too long of me talking about all of these cards, and just like my voice is going to, I'm going to die because my voice is already hurting from all of this. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it still, even if it was just the Once Upon a Pyre reveals and not the Northern Realms cards. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe for more Gwent content, and I'll see you soon.